Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for today's random horror review. Today's movie is one that, honestly, I think is pretty underrated. I literally don't think I've had anybody bring up this movie to me before, or matter of fact, even heard it, through passing in conversations and whatever. So, yeah, I'll say it's pretty underrated. It's definitely more of a psychological thriller than a straight up horror movie, but definitely goes into enough horror territory to be in my random horror reviews. But nevertheless, today's movie from 2009 is called Case 39. So I'm actually going to change up the structure of how I do today's review, because normally, if you've seen my reviews, I have a certain way of going through things and whatever. But sometimes there's a movie that I just really don't want to spoil, just in case you guys have never seen it before. I feel like the best scenario for the first time watch is going in completely blind and having fun with the story as you go and unravel things yourself. But I still want to talk about these movies, and that's kind of the case that we have here with Case 39. So I'm still going to go through the plot of this movie, but then through the first bit of this review, I'm going to tiptoe around spoilers as much as I can. Normally, I'd be giving my rating towards the end of the review, my rating out of 10, but today I'll do it in the middle. So then you guys can hear my rating, my sort of non-spoiler thoughts, and then decide if you want to go check it out for yourself. But then from then on, I will go into spoilers. I'll bring up some stuff that, would give away what's going on in this movie. So if you have seen the film before or just don't care about spoilers, you can stick around after the rating and hear my spoiler thoughts. But that's how I'm going to do today's review, something a little bit different. Normally in my reviews, I try my best to not spoil anything, and I feel like I do a pretty good job of that. But for review purposes, there's stuff I do want to bring up, which just means I do need to talk about spoilers, unfortunately. So, with that being said, let's go into the plot for this one. Renee Zellweger is our lead in this movie, and she's a child protection, officer person. She protects children. That's pretty much it. She comes across this case, which happens to be case 39, where something just isn't right with this young girl at home. She can't quite put a finger on it. There's not anything necessarily being shown that says she's being abused or whatever, but she can just sort of sense it. She's trying hard to find proof that things aren't right with the family. But then, as things go on in this movie, it turns out things aren't quite what they seem. So, I'm pretty much just going to leave the plot there. As I said, I tried my best to tiptoe around things going on in the story. And let's get into my thoughts of 2009's Case 39. So, like I brought up earlier, more of a psychological thriller, but definitely got those horror elements. That's also got a fairly strong cast of well-known actors. Like I said, leading this movie is Renee Zellweger. Regardless of what you think of her, because I know she's one of those names that get mixed, feedback when you bring her up. But I feel like she does a good job leading this movie, at least in my opinion. Bradley Cooper in a supporting role. My guess, he wasn't quite the name that he is now back when this movie was made, but he does a good job. Ian McShane, one of those guys where I always recognize his face but never remember his name, but he's also supporting and does a really solid job. Getting all the boring, technical stuff out of the way, the performances and technical aspects of this movie are really good. And watching this movie gave me kind of nostalgia, the feeling of a mid late 2000s vibe was just really good to me. And that feeling isn't too foreign to me since I grew up in the 2000s, but I think what also worked with revisiting this movie is the fact I haven't watched something psychological in a little while, so it got my gears turning in my head, especially since it had been a long time since I last watched this movie, so it was a good one to check out and go back to revisiting for this review. So I think the story and mystery in this one is pretty compelling, and at the same time not one that's overly hard to follow or is gonna fuck you around or anything like that. The story just stays engaging, and I don't feel like it really drags, which is also good. Just constantly waiting to see, where it's gonna go, pretty much. But I will say it does get to a certain point where it's clear, at least to me, where it's going, and it does take a while to move on, almost like it's still a mystery when, as a viewer, we already have put together what's happening. But that's minor only because eventually it does quickly get back with the program and moves on with a new narrative of, okay, now this is happening, So what does our character do about it? And luckily, that side of the story is also pretty good. But without spoiling anything again, because it kind of gives away the angle of where this movie eventually goes. But there are minor points that do feel a little bit over the top and maybe a bit ridiculous, but it's not too much taken away overall because it kind of adds to the charm and fun of this movie, and especially one from the mid-late 2000s. So for a score to end my spoiler-free half of the review, as you can probably tell, there's a lot that I want to talk about that are spoilers, but I'm going to give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. And again, I will just quickly reiterate before I go into the spoilers, I think the best way to go into this movie for a first time watch is blind and, let the story unravel with you and just have fun with it that way. Like I said, it's not going to throw you through massive loops or anything, but, the twists and turns of a mid to late 2000s movie, it's a lot of fun. So like I said, just wanted to reiterate, if you haven't seen this movie before, maybe just go in blind and, have fun for it yourself. So now into my spoiler half of the review, and I'm hoping whoever's left has seen this movie before, or I guess a lot of you just don't care and don't give a fuck, which is fine too. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but like I said, I feel like the best experience is going in blind. But I remember I found this movie, actually this exact copy, at a second-hand store, so maybe for like $2-3, and I had never heard of a single thing from this movie ever. Before that moment, I didn't even know this movie existed. I'm so happy that I didn't check anything online to see, what it was about or whatever. I just trusted from the cover and the little bits that I read on the back that it was going to be a horror movie or at least a thriller. So I think I watched it that exact same night as well, and I just really enjoyed the ride that it took me on, and that's why with any movie, but especially a psychological thriller, I'd prefer to go into it knowing very little. The experience of the reveals, twists, and turns for the first time just can't be matched with a psychological thriller. It's just so much fun. So, I try not to hear, reviews and everything for a movie that I'm really excited to check out. Even with a movie like this, where it does sometimes fall onto the cheesier or more ridiculous side of a thriller, I mean, it's just still worth the ride. So, like I said, this was a fun one to come across, and let's get into the spoilers. So the first thing that surprised me with this movie when I checked it out for the first time was that it was a killer kid movie, and one that I don't hear anybody talk about. I love the whole family seems abusive from the outside, but it's only because they know their daughter's true nature. And watching it unravel as Renee Zellweger gets involved with this girl and learns what's really going on. Now, when the second twist comes into play, that it's revealed the girl is actually a demon, the movie does get a little bit more out there, but as long as you play along with the ridiculousness of it, it's still fun and it's still engaging. Now, like I was saying in the spoiler-free half of the review, there's a part that we realize, okay, the girl isn't normal, she has these supernatural powers, she's a demon or something, but the movie keeps acting like it's up in the air for a while, but as a viewer, we know that she has these powers, we know that she's a demon, but like I said, it quickly moves on and changes tones to, okay, how does Renee Zellweger deal with this demon girl who is now in her life because she's now taken custody of her? And like I said, both sides of the story I think work well and still stay engaging, which is the main thing, but like I said, once the second reveal comes into play of that she's a demon, it does get a little bit more out there, but like I said, as long as you go along with the ride, and just commit to the fun and, maybe a bit more of the absurd side, it's still a fun watch. So as I wrap up my thoughts for this one, like I said, with the reveal that the little girl is actually a demon, like I said, there comes a lot of, ridiculous moments that, you sort of have to play into, moments of coughing up CGI wasps, some unrealistic shit going down, but like I said, if you take it on board for what it is, you should still enjoy it. I do think, in a way, it's kind of a hidden gem, but especially for the killer kid subgenre in horror. But with that being said, it's not original either. There are plenty of killer kid movies where the kid has supernatural powers and, they're making people do what they want or else. But it's entertaining, and the twists and turns, even though they aren't anything crazy and they're not going to throw you through major loops or anything, but they're fun, and it's always interesting to see where this one goes. So like I said earlier, I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, if you haven't seen this movie, check it out. Maybe a lot of people have checked it out, and I just have never been in the conversations of people talking about it, but I do think it's underrated. Yes, a little bit more cheesy and ridiculous side of a psychological thriller slash horror, but if you play into it, I can still see a lot of people having fun with it like I did. So if you have seen Case 39, check it. Sorry, if you have seen Case 39, let me know your thoughts of it. If you haven't seen Case 39, and I've spoiled it for you anyway, because if you're up to this point, I'm guessing you didn't care about the spoilers, still check it out because I definitely recommend it. And thank you for joining me for this random horror review, guys, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.